feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast. We're brought to you by Prize Picks. Coming in Monday morning, it's November 11th, and the plan for today's show is to talk about the Wolves' loss to Miami on Sunday night. And then later in the episode, we're going to kind of look at where the Wolves rank in a few key categories now that they are 10 games into the season. I'm joined by Wolves beat writer Jace Frederick from the St. Paul Pioneer Press. To get into all that, Jace, obviously we got to start with the end of that game last night. There's a lot that went wrong on both sides of the ball. The final defensive possession, the final offensive possession were really, just frankly, fumbled pretty badly by the Wolves coaching staff and the players. They all admitted as much basically when we interviewed them after the game. Seems like a lot happened. There was only like 9 seconds left on the clock when the Wolves were up by 2, 9 seconds to go, but Miami has the ball and the Wolves are on defense. It was all very confusing. And in the moment, like it seemed like the Wolves were messing up everything so poorly there that I felt like I didn't understand what their plans were on either one of those spots. Again, we did talk to the players in the locker room afterwards. I have the Alexander Walker and Conley clips explaining, I guess Nikhil's one is explicitly explaining the defensive thing. But after talking to the players in the locker room and the part of Finch's press conference that we were able to get to, just kind of quick pitched us there. What do you, with the defensive side of the ball, 9 seconds left down to, what happened wrong on that possession?
I'm glad we're starting with that one because I still don't know what happened offensively. I mean, we'll get to that. And I'm just like, I have no idea what, because like the answers are different. And like defensively, well, first up, just like the thing that I don't like, because we'll get to like all the coaching and like the switching and all that stuff, but like we're seeing more and more teams do this. Miami smart, so I'm not surprised they did it as well. Is like when teams are doing these side out of bounds, out of a timeout late in the game, like rather than have something set up in the front court and just like, you know, it trying to like have one guy fight to get open in the backcourt and then initiate from there. They are running these more like using the full 94 feet and guys are stationed all over the floor and it's like wide receiver routes half the time. Like you're running all over. So guys are chasing and it just leaves more room for confusion, leaves more room for guys to get free. I would like to see teams like kind of, I don't know, not worry so much about defending in the backcourt in those spots because you're bound to leave yourself liable in some way, shape, or form when you are spacing it out that much. And like the Wolves didn't have anybody even stationed inside the 3-point line defensively because everybody's manned up. So things like that can happen. So I think that's something that all teams, because you're seeing more teams get smarter offensively with that of like, wait, we have all of this space. And if teams are going to press up, let's use it all. So like, I would just like, that was point A for me on that.
Can I add in on that really quick too? It seems, and I think again with what Finch was describing, is there's a real fear of the three in those spots, and that would be obviously that logic wasn't sound in this case. It didn't work out, but I think the idea was
picking somebody up in the backcourt though. Like you can do it at half court and not give up the three.
Yeah, I mean you could. I'm just saying. I think the idea is that by staying attached, no matter where you are, not switching or just switching everything once the play is going, is you're going to always have like a man on a body, which is going to make, if they are running something for a quick three in that spot, which again, is that even the right idea? But it just, that's the only logic I can go to there. And Finch said it was because Kevin Love checked into the game, so they took Gobert out.
Yeah.
I mean, again, this was wrong. I think it's a little bit of this like example of the three is ridiculous right now in the league. I mean, I was just, like I said, I was going through some of those numbers, just like the volume of threes, the percentage of threes, the everything. There's such a fear of the three right now that I think Finch forgot about how easy it is to get to a two if you have all your guys there. I mean, remember one of Finch's first plays after with the Wancho play? Remember that? Like D'Lo to Wancho is the same sort of thing, like slip through. Like he knows that that's obviously something you can get to there. I just think their setup was a little phobic of the three.
Yeah, and I understand your logic there. I just still think that can all be taken away even while not defending 94 feet there. You know, like I think you can have the exact same thing. And I understand what you're saying, and I think you're probably right there. I I think that teams will have to rethink that a little bit more. Just because you're just exposing yourself in a lot of ways. Like so many things can go wrong.
Right.
But then like this is where like you watch the play and you're like, wow, how did Nikhil get beat there on that screen? And they switch and he's so late on the switch and there's so much hesitation.
It was a lot.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. My bad. Keep going.
Well, do you want to play it or do you want me to describe it first?
I was going to put up the play.
Okay, yeah, pull it up.
The final. Sorry, maybe
I
only have a final defensive possession. Here it is. So there's Nikhil scrambling.
Yep. And you look and you're like, wait, why did Nikhil so slow on that switch there? And we find out it's because from Mike and Nikhil, they weren't supposed to switch anything pre-ball going in, like in that play.
Let's describe that because that makes sense to us now, but it took us a while to figure that out. What that means last night. So you're staying attached, until the ball is inbounded, which Nikhil is doing here, but then Ant loses Jovic.
Yep.
So Nikhil is a second late there to be able to switch onto Jovic there because he's operating under the assumption of like we're not switching anything until the ball has been inbounded there. So that's why Nikhil is a step late. It's because Ant was first a step late. So collective.
And when you look at Nikhil take that 2 steps back, I'm like, oh, now you're getting in good position to like for Rozier. Like, why would you need to be like pressed on his hip? But maybe play the clip now and then we can talk about like why that happened. Why it makes more sense.
The Nikhil one. Here's Nikhil in the final defensive possession.
It was a lot because I was guarding one person and I had to switch, and then I was guarding another person and I had to switch like 4 times before the ball was inbounded. And then the way I had read it was they had everyone up there, and I didn't want to like overpress or get too deep. And as I seen Rozier break out, I kind of wanted to be able to just like catch his cut or whatever. And he curled, and I know our talk was not to switch off the ball before the ball was inbounded. So when I seen him set the back screen, I was a little hesitant to just go. I think at that point, with the clock situation and everything, all bets are off, I guess, and you just kind of like got to take it. So I read it late, and at that point I probably should just wrap them up, but try to make a play for it.
That last part I'm just thinking about, kind of like what Conley said in his when he was talking about the final offensive possession, which we'll obviously get to, but it's just they in both situations they got to a all bets are off. We're just scrambling, trying to figure something out last second, and that's it's just an indictment of everything. It's an indictment of the plan going in. It's an indictment of the timing. It's an indictment of the execution effort. All the stuff, and I get what Nikhil is saying there, and I don't think of Nikhil at all as a non-effort player. It's just they got dysregulated on both sides of the ball on both of those possessions and gave up an easy bucket, and Nikhil commits the foul there, so it's an and one, so puts him up by 1, and then we'll get to the offensive side, but same thing too. It's just like you're just chasing it. They're just chasing it.
Yeah, and so on that play, like they're not supposed to switch that screen, but then Ant just kind of died into the back screen. Kind of just wasn't like aware it was there and just died into it. And then at that point, he's like, well, I just got screened. Jovic is 3 steps away, and I just realized that I'm screened right here. Right. So he just kind of hugs Rozier then and is like, well, I guess now I've got Rozier. And so if you're Nikhil, you're like, we're not switching this. And then you're watching Jokic run away by himself. It's like, I guess we're switching this. So that I think
that is the explanation. That's it right there. That's it.
Yeah. And I think I would put some on Ant there of just not being super, like, I know you're sticking to your guy, but like not cognizant at all of what's going on around you there. And then just dying into the screen and not having an idea that that's coming, not feeling it. And I know that
you got to stay butt to the basket there too.
Yeah.
Right? He gets turned. You just like that. That's the thing, because if Rozier or Jovic like flares off and they get wide open, but it's towards the backcourt. All right.
Right.
Now it's time to guard,
right.
It just, the release can't happen going the direction of the basket.
Yeah, totally. So like, I do think that Ant had the biggest blunder defensively on that possession. And then but that's about it. And then like, I guess getting into the Rudy piece of it, like you said, because they wanted to switch everything, that when Kevin Love, who's a shooter, gets out there, they want to have guys that they can kind of stick on everybody. You don't want like Kevin Love flaring out, Rudy doesn't get out there. Like Rudy takes on a switch because you have to switch there. Now Rudy's on a guard basically, and then Kevin Love's flaring out and like more likely for the three. It really does. It is hard not to have it harken back to like the Dallas thing where the Wolves did opt to switch. They ended up switching, and then Luka hits that three. And obviously we all recognize that was a very tough shot that Luka hit. But that's what I thought of. They're like, nope, we're not, like we will switch everything. And if we have enough shooters on the floor there, then like we're going to not have Rudy out there because we think we match up better in that situation. So that was kind of how I read it. Let's be honest, the way it played out, if they actually switched everything, what difference would Rudy being out there have made?
Right. That one's just a process question.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. 100%.
And I am just like now pretty sold on the idea that like Rudy does have another defensive gear to go to. In the last minute or whatever, 2 minutes of the game. So to that end, like I think I do want him on the floor defensively no matter what. At end of games, this is a little bit different. Like I don't even mind Rudy on a switch in like the half court setting. Like Luka got him, but people who watched all 82 last year, like no, honestly, Rudy's. I mean, they got some really good perimeter defenders. So I don't want to say he's as good as anybody in a switch situation there. Like, I'd rather have Nikhil on Rozier than Gobert. But like, I'm really not that worried about Gobert in that spot. Now, that said, you want to talk about the offensive side of the ball and taking Rudy out situationally. That totally makes sense to me. It just makes a little bit less sense to me defensively to have Gobert out of there because I don't mind him on switches. And he is a clutch defensive player. And I don't know, we run that again. It probably, like you said, probably doesn't make a difference, but
who's he guarding there where that matters, like that,
right?
In that play. And I think that's why Miami runs something like that. We're not going to run a half court set against Rudy Gobert. We're going to do this full court thing. That play is basically what you would run if you had 3 seconds, and they ran it with 9, I think, because they're like, let's get something good early or try to get something good early here. And I think it's like, and then Rudy's not, it's hard. If Rudy's on the floor there, it's going to be hard in that set for Rudy to be any way involved in that defensive play. So I think that's kind of part of Miami's calculation in general is like, let's run this because we think they can kind of mitigate Rudy's impact. I agree with you in the process of Rudy should be out there anyway, but there is like almost no way in that situation that unless he is directly involved in the action, he's going to have any impact there.
Let's Rudy was upset that he wasn't out there, but I don't think it was like super upset. And so maybe we should just play the Gobert clip just so we know where he's at in terms of his frustration. He was asked directly about that after the game.
Were you surprised when you were not on the floor at the end there for the defensive possession, or how did?
For sure. I mean, I'm pretty good on that end of the floor, so I live for those moments. That's what I do best. So I was frustrated for sure, but decisions. Coach made decisions, and we're living with that.
I guess I don't know. Maybe some people do take that as him being pissed off. How did you read that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's frustrated for sure, but I think you're allowed to be frustrated for sure. Like, and as long as it doesn't ever trickle over, like, yeah, like if a coach doesn't play you in the fourth quarter or whatever, or like a such a play like that, like you're allowed to be mad internally. Like everybody would if you're being honest with yourself. And I don't mind just giving an honest answer. Like, what I just think, like, if you want people to be open with the media, like, he didn't trash Chris Finch at all or anything like that. It's just like, coach made his decision. We live with it. Yeah. I'm pretty good out there. I would like to be out there in that spot. Like, that is just honest. There's nothing said bad about anybody there. Like, that if we can't accept that as like an answer of like, yeah, that all makes sense. That's exactly how everybody would feel. Right. Then what are we doing reading into anything? I agree. It probably was ticked. Why wouldn't he be defensive player of the year and he wasn't on the court? I'm not saying I don't think it would have mattered there, but he has every right to be mad about that in the moment. And as long as it doesn't bleed over into anything else, so, like the next practice, the next game, then who cares? I'm that's where I'm at on it.
Yeah. I would agree with that. And if he'd been consistently being held out of games and critical situations and it had cost them in the past, like now, if you do that again in a month and and you mess up something defensively and Rudy's not out there because you want to switch everything, like, yeah, then maybe if you're Rudy, you turn that dial up or you make that frustration known a little bit, hopefully in a more private setting than through the media. But that was my read on Go Bears' feeling on that, how that all played out as well. I want to move over to the offensive possession, which I think is the more interesting one.
I'll let you take this one, man. I have no idea.
Yeah, let me. This might take a second. So let's hit our ad break here first, and then we'll get into that final offensive possession. Today's show is brought to you by Treasure Island Resort and Casino, and we'll be reminding you all week that this Friday, November 15th, Kyle Tigey and I will be doing a live show at TI. The Wolves play the Kings that night at 9 p.m. It's a late tip. So the idea is we're going to do a show kind of in the hour or so before the game. If you want to come at like 7 o'clock, we kind of do like a happy hour. We'll be there hanging out. Then maybe between 7:30 and 8, we'll kind of do the live show so we can do about an hour before the game. And obviously we'll take a bunch of questions and try and get everybody involved while we're there. But again, just this Friday, this coming Friday, November 15th, the Kings, I think, is always a pretty fun matchup. We would love if you would come down there. If you would like to get a hotel room, they are offering 15% off to listeners. Let them know that you're using the code DANE when you call in to book your room, and they will give you 15% off. Call 1-888-867-7829. That is in the show notes of this episode, or for more information, you can visit ticasino.com for details. We're also brought to you by Falling Knife Brewing Company. It's West Coast games all week. They play back-to-back in Portland on Tuesday and Wednesday. And a really cool thing that Falling Knife does is they stay open late. If the Wolves are playing a late game, they're committed to, if the Wolves are playing, the game's going to be on at Falling Knife. And on the projection screens, and the volume will be on as well. So on Tuesday or Wednesday for the Portland games, if you want to head to Falling Knife, or Friday night if you're not coming down to Treasure Island and you're just in Minneapolis and you're looking for a place to go with family, friends, whatever, to watch the Wolves, I can't think of a better place than Falling Knife. You will be obviously surrounded by Wolves fans there as well. They have Rectangle Pizza there 7 days a week. So if you're wanting to eat there, we want to have that on your radar. And then they are serving Second Apron, the beer that we partnered with them on. So that's Falling Knife Brewing Company in Northeast Minneapolis. If the Wolves game is on, they will have it on at Falling Knife.
I mean, Treasure Island, Falling Knife, like for Friday's game, like, you got to do something. Like, it's the NBA Cup. Like, you have to do something big for that. So like, go out and like, there are only so many of these. So
I'm just thinking about what you were saying last night. Yep.
I tweeted like, obviously like they got to get this figured out. Like, the NBA Cup is Friday, and the number of people are like, nobody cares about the NBA Cup. I'm like, what?
You know what I will say?
Actually, when it started last year, it was entertaining, and I think it's always a concept that when it's happening, like when you're leading into it, it's like, this is stupid. And I'm in that camp as well. And then when they're playing it, and when they're playing like the single elimination games out of group play, I'm like, this is cool. So I agree with that ahead of time. That will always be the mindset I have too. You won't look back on the season and be like, NBA Cup, that was huge. Wow, Lakers, big NBA Cup win last year, like amazing. But in the moment, it's something fun. I do agree with that.
I remember I was in San Francisco for when the Wolves played Golden State for one of those games. And obviously that last year's the first year. We have no idea how much these players are going to care about it all, whatever. It was cool being in the locker room, and like, I think it was like Shake Milton and somebody else were like really getting into like the standings of it all. And what that means to me is I think the league did find a good incentive. Shocker, it's money, but like there is an added drive for, it's $500K, right? Like each player gets $500K if they win.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I'm pretty sure.
Right. Yeah.
That's what the amount is. And, like in a two-way player, like I think two-way players get that too. And that's about what you make as a two-way player if you get all your NBA time. So there is like, it's a cool, if you're Anthony Edwards and you got more money than God, it's a cool thing you can do for, for your teammates.
Those guys never think they haven't, like, it's not like Ant doesn't care about winning $500,000. Like, like that is how, like, you see with like rich people, it's not like they then don't care about like making more money. That is still incentive for him as well. My favorite part about it, and I know it's like a side tangent, but like the ends of games where it's like a 9-point game and teams know that it matters whether they lose by 12 or 6. Like, that's my favorite part. Like, you go into the last minute and teams are fouling, teams are trying to score, like games that are over. Like, it's like, oh, okay, this is actually entertaining, and you're actually seeing 48 minutes of competitive basketball.
It's very like AAU basketball tournament seeding, like point differential, all that sort of stuff, which obviously you never see in the NBA. So we'll see. I mean, I think Finch talked about a pregame, I think, in Chicago one time, and he just raved about like it being a great idea. I mean, it's both. I really think it's both. I think it's something that's totally fair for us to make fun of.
Yes,
and it's also a cool thing. Those things are both true. All right, let's talk about this final offensive possession. So now, after the Heat get that bucket and the and one, now they're up by 1, and there's like 7.8 seconds to go, I think is what it was. And Miami has a foul to give right there. So you got to, I mean, the assumption in that situation is a foul is coming.
Right.
So a contingency plan is critical there. You're going to draw up your original thing, and you got to have a good original play to go to, because if they decide to, like, the equivalent of ice the kicker and not, not foul you there, you got to have an action to go to, but you got to have a second one. And I think that was their second action. They didn't have anything. They didn't have the right guy inbounding the ball. And then when they did, it just ended up being a quick get it into Mike Conley so he can heave it. Let's start by playing Conley's explanation of what went wrong there. I asked him about the foul to give and the contingency plan.
They had a foul to give. Did you guys have a plan for what the contingency was there?
I think we were caught up in if it was the free throws or not, and we were thinking they were huddling up to do something, and the guy like literally threw the ball to Ant, and what we were trying to not drop our play, but go to our next action. Ant was trying to get out of the ball passing situation to bring somebody else in, and they just threw him the ball. So we were stuck at that point in whatever position we were in, and we just, whatever shot we got. So it was just a mad scramble at the end, which, is on us at the end of the day. We have to be more aware and not get lost in the moment.
Yeah, that's just, again, listening to that, that's the frustrating part of it, right? Is like, it's on us at the end of the day. We needed to be more ready there. Same thing on the defensive side of the floor. Like, you mess both of those up, you deserve to lose that. I mean, it's kind of that simple.
I kind of like that answer, though. He makes it seem like Ant is just like somehow positioned on the sideline. No intention of inbounding ball. Definitely not standing there waiting to take an inbounds and not realizing until after they start the thing that that's not what was supposed to happen anymore. Like, they screwed it up, but then framing it like the ref just gave Ant the ball. Like, because if Ant's in the middle of the court and he gets the ball, like, now you have to inbound it.
Right.
It's like he was waiting to inbound the ball, and only then were they like, wait, we're supposed to flip this. This isn't right. I don't know what we're doing here. Now what? They screwed it up. And without a timeout or anything, like when Ant's holding the ball for an inbound, now it is too late. They botched it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the instinct in a scramble moment is what was messed up there by Ant. Like, that shot's going to you.
Right.
Like, so you should be the fifth person to be stepping out of bounds to inbound that. Because even if you don't have a play, the play should be give Ant the ball there. There's at that point it was like 3.7 or something like that. Ant give Ant the shot to be able to to look for it there. Randle's like running over like wait, let me inbound it, and then the ref does give Ant the ball, and they got absolutely nothing out of that. And
they actually got a decent shot. It just didn't go.
Decent.
It was out of nothing. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't 3.7. You don't know what you're gonna get. Like, they gotta look at it. But yeah, it was not Mike's night. So
yeah, so I don't really have a lot else.
We don't even know. Like, the thing about it is, I don't know what they were trying to get to the first or second time. Like, because Finch is like, we want to get a flare screen for Ant, and the first time he gave the answer, he's like, but then I changed it last second. And then talking about the second play, he's like, we wanted to run that inverse, and it sounded like a flare screen for Ant again. It's like, but you said you changed it the first time. Last second, did you? I don't know. Like, so that So just being honest here, like we don't know. Don't have like a great picture of exactly what they wanted to get to.
Well, yeah, and for context and for why I'm not, I mean, just for listeners, why I'm not playing any Finch clips was like, it was very quick after the game. Normally he goes into the locker room to talk to players and then comes to the podium.
Yep.
So like literally for me, I'd leave in the media section, go to grab my camera, and Finch was already like multiple questions in by the time that I sat down. So I literally don't even have the footage of Finch's explanation, but kind of going through and you guys transcribe it. We're in agreement afterwards that what Finch was saying didn't quite make sense to us.
Which happens.
Yeah.
Like coaches talk to themselves. Like if you have to answer a bunch of questions, like sometimes you're just gonna, and you're not even sure exactly how that just played out. You know, like you're gonna get it probably wrong. And I'm sure if he sat down today, he would actually explain it to you. Like here's what happened. But it just didn't make sense the way it was explained last night.
Yeah, and one thing he did say, like he said it was on me.
Yes.
Like,
yep. He took he's like, I got to do a better job communicating what we want to do on both ends. Clearly in those situations, like he's like, I clearly like. You know, there's some miscommunication defensively, obviously some miscommunication offensively. He's like, I got to be better. You know, he definitely took the blame for that. So,
yeah, and I think you know if you do want to assign blame to this, like the general confusion that happened, given that it happened on both sides of the ball and in the way that it did, that like first and foremost falls on the coach.
Yep.
And then we went into the context of those plays, and I think there's a lot of blame to go on Ant for the switching before the ball was inbounded on that defensive possession, as I think we understand that wasn't the plan. And then Ant stepping out of bounds to inbound it for a couple of reasons. Like one, he should be taking the shot, but two, that wasn't the plan, or at least the plan as we understand it. So for one reason or another, Ant instinctually went out of bounds to inbound the ball, I guess. And that was an error too. So, I mean, those are probably your two most important people on the team.
And then you could talk about the Rudy situation of like, should he been on the court? Is that another coaching thing? You know, like, because I don't know if it would have mattered. Obviously, the one thing you could point to is like, well, Rudy would guard the inbound better than Mike if you put him there, like that kind of stuff. But I mean, it was not a great coaching last 10 seconds of the game. I'm not arguing that whatsoever. I don't think Chris Finch would either. Not his finest moment for sure.
Let's just move over to the game a little bit more broadly, but also Ant specific. It was their first Ant did not shoot or play well game of the season. And I think I do think this team has enough offensive juice to kind of, make up for that. Generally speaking, Ant's not going to shoot 5 for 9 from 3 every single game, and the Wolves should be able to survive that. But it was interesting to me, or how it kind of felt in the moment was, all right, Ant isn't having his game, so then you start moving down the pecking order, and you needed that to be a good Julius Randle game, I think. And Julius Randle is being guarded by Bam Adebayo in that game, and a lot of Randle's stuff works less against Bam. One thing primarily is if Bam is on Randle, Miami doesn't have to really send a second defender for Randle to be doing the stuff that he's been awesome at all year, which is like get to like 7 feet, wait for the defense to collapse, and then spray it out to find shooters. He did that at times during the game, but I haven't rewatched it yet. But I put in my notes, I was like, oh, that was zone. Like this possession came out of zone where Randle did something well.
Or when Bam wasn't out there. So it was just Ant didn't shoot that well, and Randle wasn't able to kind of pick him up there. I do think, though, I mean, this is a compliment. Like there's other things there to kind of pick him up too. Nikhil and Naz, particularly in the third quarter, like they were the instigators of offense. Naz had a big offensive boomlet there. Nikhil's just doing a lot of things right that is just leading to winning on both sides of the ball. So I think that there was the worst Randle and Ant combination game of the season, yet they were very much in it and could have won that with better execution down the stretch. Was a reminder that this team is very Ant and Randle dependent, and when you don't have either of them to go to with the consistency of production, or the expectation of a consistency of production, it gets a little bit dicey, and it got a little bit dicey last night. Yeah, and I don't think that's unique to the Wolves. Like,
Sure,
hey,
yeah.
hey, if your best two offensive players struggle, like, gonna have a hard time winning the game. It's like, yep,
Mhm.
okay, you can check pretty much every team in the NBA off that list. For me, I think it's just like, and Ant missed a lot of shots that he's made in previous games, no question. Even like some catch and shoot looks that you'd think would go down. Like you're just gonna have off shooting nights. But it is a little bit for me. Like it seems like when they've played good, like teams with decent personnel, or honestly just a care factor defensively, like they've struggled more offensively. Like their best games have come against,
Yeah.
like last week was 3 teams that can't spell defense. And the Wolves just like darted up the offensive rating of playing,
Yeah.
Portland, Charlotte, Chicago. Like those are going to be 3 of the worst defensive teams in the NBA throughout the year. They'll play 2 games against Portland this week. Portland stinks all around, but defensively, like they just don't even look like they know what they're doing. They're not scheming anything. Like it's horrible. Sacramento just doesn't have defensive personnel. So like games outside of that, like there have been other games where it's like, okay, well this team tries or they scheme or they have people. How high of a level can you execute at against those teams? And there just isn't much of a sample size because they haven't played that many good defensive teams yet. But that still is a question mark for me. Like I think this team has shown like it can be explosive offensively, but can it like execute at a high level against teams that can actually sit down and do something?
Yeah, and I would like to see whether it's the opponent like selling out to take away the 3 or just blitzing, whatever, being aggressive to run them off the line. I think that was a fair frustration with Randle and Edwards last night is, all right, they didn't have their 3-point shot going. Ant's 4 for 14, Randle's 1 for 6 from 3. Okay, let's get downhill. Let's you guys are just as good at that, if not better, right? At getting downhill and being threats from 2-point range. Ant was 4 for 10 from 2, and Randle was 5 for 10 from 2. I think for the both of them, I want to see when the shot isn't there from distance, an ability to go to something else in the interior that we know they both have. I just think it was kind of like a highlighter over. Yeah, a little. Both of them have been a little 3-point dependent this season, and I'm not trying to do the Ants shooting too many threes.
No,
Obviously that's stupid, but there. In all of that, there's always a balance, and that was the first game this season, particularly with Ant, where it felt imbalanced, and it felt like there were opportunities, numerous, to turn the corner and get downhill. If you're Ant, where he kind of came at it soft, and he was looking for a catch and shoot, rather than just catching it on the turn and getting downhill there. It's gonna be, with Ant in particular, you're shooting it really, really well. So I understand the impulse to want to be that volume 3-point shooter, but just remember what you got, remember that you have this special ability downhill too. And it's harder going to the basket. You're going to get hit, you're going to fall to the ground. If me and you went and played pickup basketball right now, we're shooting a lot of threes just because we don't want to go run and get hit, like I get it. Right. But they need that. They need that force gear, that downhill gear. And it just wasn't there from those 2.
And I thought with Ant, you could kind of see there were just a couple times. It wasn't like a glaring issue, but like when the 3 wasn't falling, the times when he was like, all right, I'm going to take it to the rim. But it was clearly like kind of like I'm going to take it to the rim and score. Where it was like, and like it was just turnovers out of that, missed shots. Like it can be like, I know you're pressing because you're not hitting anything, so you want to get yourself going a little bit, and then maybe like find the jumper from there. But sometimes then he would drive in and it was like kind of a collapsed paint. It's like, okay, driving kick here, but he's thinking in his head like, I got to get myself going. The 3 isn't falling. I got to score at the rim. Thinking like I'll just get in there and score. You got to keep the open mind even as you're driving of like this can be for somebody else. There were a few times in that game where I was like, that was dribble, drive into a crowd, try to shoot.
That's a good point. Yeah, be the playmaker there too.
Yeah. So and sometimes it's okay. It's okay if you're a playmaker. Like we've seen him do that in the past. I think last night would have been a good time for it as well.
If you aren't getting a good Edwards and Randle game, one of the people you would think to go to at least last season, right down the pecking order, would be Mike Conley. I remember last season games that Ant missed. Mike turned up his offensive aggression and was part of the answer there, whether that be individually or in 2-man game with Rudy. And 10 games into the season, that just is not feeling like a gear that Mike has or doesn't have yet. And we're now 10 games in, and this has been a real struggle for Mike. And I think the most jarring part of it is a lot of it is just the shot. And I don't know, I guess I could go both ways with that. Like, that's going to come around. It's the shot. At least that's not like an athletic thing or something you would anticipate losing with age. But I just looked it up this morning, last in the league in points per shot attempt amongst point guards. Russell Westbrook is above him, second to last. You know, it is kind of that, where the possessions that have been leading to Mike shots have just been really inefficient. You know, I'll let you go here. It's my honest opinion is it's definitely not something I anticipate continuing or being an all 82 game thing this year, but it is seeming like you really got to turn the truck around, and this is going to be this might take a little bit longer than I anticipated, because the struggle, I think, thus far has been real.
Yeah, and it's tough, right? Like when Mike's not knocking down shots and Jaden's not knocking down shots, and you have two guys who just aren't hitting open shots. And now when you do have a night when Ant and Julius struggle, it's like, well, here's your starters. It's those two,
And then Rudy,
Mike and Jaden and Rudy. You know, like it's like, okay, well, keep trying, Ant and Julius. You know, like what else are we gonna do here?
Yeah.
Or it ends up in these possessions that just end empty because you're like, well, Mike just missed an open shot, Jaden just missed an open shot. Like, okay, back down the court, a decent process, I guess. Yeah, Mike, it really is. Like, I know there's talk like he looks old, blah blah blah. Like that's just gonna be like commentary whenever an older player struggles. He's just shooting the ball so poorly right now. Like last night, like, and some of those threes, like those weren't close. A lot of those, where we saw some rim outs and stuff, like that was not the case last night. There were a few good ones late that just weren't. I don't know. They didn't look close. I have full confidence that'll turn it around too. I just like, there's no way that this guy who was just ascending as a shooter every year for like the last however many years now stinks at shooting. Like there's just I don't think there's any way. You can talk about the wrist, whatever. You just talk about finding a rhythm. Maybe he hasn't found it, adapting to new players, new roles. I do think like the shifting minutes thing matters for a lot of these guys of like, I'm playing this little spurt. Sometimes I go in here, sometimes I don't. Like that matters. The one good thing I'll say for him is like for a guy, if you want to go like the aging thing, like defensive field goal percentage, he's at 35.8. Teams are shooting 24 for 67 against him. He has been like one of the lone bright spots there where like Ant and Jaden, like people are shooting 50% against Jaden, 48% against Ant. Those numbers are significantly worse than they were a year ago. So like Mike's actually getting it there. You'll find a few possessions where he probably got cooked. I think Rozier did that last night to him in the fourth, but like Mike's holding his own actually on the defensive end, but the offense, like, yeah, he is definitely stalling it out right now just with the shooting stuff, man. Like it's hard. And then if you pair the two and you have the two guys out there who aren't hitting open shots, that's really hard.
Yeah. I think it's a good point to bring up the defense, because if you're watching it, you can tell like he doesn't look foot speed slow. That part looks like last year. Sometimes is he physically outmatched? Yeah. For sure. And they're often asking him to guard small forwards, right? Because they're putting Ant and Jaden on the 1 and the 2, right? He's guarding Haywood Highsmith last night. He's guarding Michael Porter Jr. against the Nuggets, those sort of things. But yeah, the compete level and the physicality of Mike is there. And if you're reviewing that, like, that's fine. I do think with the shot, like the shot is looking funky sometimes, like aiming it, not every time. Some of them are the rim outs, but like there was one like in front of us opposite corner last night. And it was, it was like one of those where he like shot it and then like kind of shuffled both of his feet in afterwards. You're like, oh, Mike, that's not how you shoot, but like classic, like I'm just trying to get this from the corner.
I need one to go in. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like,
yeah, that's natural.
Man, the way I've been shooting ain't working. So let's
I'm gonna try this one out. We did talk to him after the game about his rough patch, and he kind of detailed some of it there too. So play that clip.
Yeah, we could finish with 7-8 different guys. So what plays are our go-tos? What's our 3 seconds on the clock out of bounds play with this lineup or that lineup? And I think it'll just take time. We're in a spot where we're learning a lot as we go, kind of on the fly, and we'll be better.
Is that just what's applying to you individually right now, too, Mike, just in terms of your game and your consistency?
Yeah, just trying to find it within the flow of who I'm on the court with. My minutes are different. I come in and out different times. Who I play with dictates, where I'm at on the ball, off the ball, and I'm just trying to find myself within that, and I will. I just try to adjust. I've always adjusted. That's how I'm still here right now. Is no matter what situation, I'll figure it out, and just a little rough patch right now.
Jace, do you think it is time for like some sort of rotation shift for this team? It feels like, specific to Mike, like it's similar guidelines of his rotation to what it was a season ago. But if last season his rotations were 6 to 8 minutes long, now it's like 4 to 6 minutes long. And it just feels like really disjointed, like, wow, Mike wasn't in the game, for long here. And I think it's trying to, at this part, I don't put on Finch and Nori at all. Like, it's a complicated thing because you're trying to dial up Nikhil and Dante and Nas minutes, right? But you're also trying to get Mike into a rhythm, and those things just seem like in direct confliction of each other. And I don't know. I don't know what it would look like or what the answer would be if it's a starting lineup change or this and that. I don't have a suggestion, but it is feeling like they're at a point where maybe something needs to sort of shift there, whether it be the starting lineup or just a new sort of mold of how the rotation works, so as to kind of aim for some better rhythm for the players who are most out of rhythm right now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think changing the starting lineup makes the most sense. Like, I wouldn't do that. I don't think I'd pull Mike Conley out of the starting lineup, but I always say it makes sense of like, if somebody's going to play 22 to 24 minutes from the starting lineup, and that's not going to just mean like you have two choices for that. Either like he can basically play the whole first quarter and be done and not play the second, but that wouldn't happen. So then you're like, well, how do we get to 24? And it's like a 5-minute shift. And then you come back and it's a 6-minute shift, like in every quarter. And that's the only way you can do it. Then it is really hard to find a rhythm out of that because Mike has generally like to play like eight straight minutes or whatever. A lot of guys would, but that's going to put you more in like the 30-minute range. And that's just not really the situation for them right now. It's hard. Like, it's easier to get somebody 24 minutes while playing within a rhythm off the bench. That's just my, just looking at rotations and the way that the game flows, and
Great
just
point.
the math, but I don't know. Would it not feel weird to you if Mike Conley came off the bench? Like right now, it would feel very weird, I think.
Getting less weird.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
for those reasons.
To start it would be, and then 5 games, then you'd be like, yeah, this is what they do. So I get that too.
Yeah. I just,
one quick one. Like, if you're just going to do if he's going to sub in, he could come in with 4 minutes left in the first, and then he can still start that second quarter and play with that same unit that they like to start with now, and you can maintain all of that stuff while having him play an extended run.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. I not perfect sense,
right?
But the alternative doesn't either. And the fourth quarter and the end of the game is the perfect, light on this of okay, here's now Mike back into the game to close the game, because Mike Conley has closed a bunch of games for them that they've won over the years. But I mean, I could go look up the rotation, but I mean, Mike had been out for a while and he comes back in. What was it, 2 minutes, maybe a minute and a half?
I don't remember when he subbed back in exactly.
For something. I mean, I'm not gonna look it up here right now, but
go ahead,
it's
I'll look it up.
just disjointed, and I just that's the. And you could close Mike Conley. You brought him off the bench too. That's the thing. I think what we know with Finch, a huge shift from last season, is that there is not a dogmatic closing lineup. The Nikhil's closed a bunch of games. They are willing to try different things in terms of closing. So I think that part's all fine. It's like you said, it's this 240 minutes puzzle that you and I talked about before the season, where it's just tricky and complicated to get to in the proper rhythm. The 6th, 7th, and 8th best players on this team are playing as well or better than
are not the 6th, 7th, 8th best players. Yeah. That's the problem.
Yeah,
they're probably actually 3rd, 4th, 5th, or whatever.
What about if Jaden was playing better? Does this not feel as problematic?
I think it's huge. I mean, he is not as impactful defensively right now, and he's shooting very poorly. He's not. There's a reason why you think Mike's a problem right now? Like Mike's net rating is like 3 points better than Jaden. Jaden's the only guy with a -1.
Yep,
And it feels like that. It feels like that on the court. Like he's not, I don't know which end of the court that he's really impacting in a positive way right now. Because he's just not like the same like game-changing defender in the moment. He's just not. There are plenty of plays where he's like either just getting like just dying into screens or like even like guys are just getting by him. Like it's just not like you can deal with some offensive struggles if like, it's like, wow, but he is making our defense fantastic, but he's not in a lot of these games right now. And then the shooting, it just compounds it because like it is pretty deflating for Mike and Jane right now. And it always has been for a team when you have a great possession, it ends in a wide open shot and it doesn't go in. And repeatedly, we see the times when their shots do go in, like the burst that this offense can go on right now, but like it can be kind of like a run killer. Like, I don't know. It's Jaden's playing poorly. Mike's playing not great.
Are there any to the Jaden point? Like, are there any reasons to point to for why this is? Like with Mike, we're doing a better job of diagnosing. Like, okay, like Mike was one of your primary playmakers last season. You now brought in Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo, have the ball in their hand and are playmakers on a large volume of possessions. So it's changing Mike's role when he's out on the floor. It's changing his rotation of his minutes. What, like, is this the trade that is impacting McDaniels, or is he just not having a good first 10 games?
I don't know. Defensively, it's tough. Offensively, this is the shooter he was for a lot of last year. That's just kind of the reality of it, right? Like he had a better playoff shooting the ball, like especially late. So I think I had optimism of like, well, last year was the aberration and like he couldn't possibly shoot as bad from three as he did during the regular season. And right now it's worse. I don't know. That's concerning. I think the shooting is legitimately concerning. That you start looking at the playoffs and be like, that was just a hot stretch at a good time. And the defensively, I mean, I think he'll figure it out defensively, but it has been a little weird of like, just not any type of dominant player right now.
Yeah, you would hope it with him, and maybe with both of them. It's like
I'll give everybody a little leeway with the trade of like rotations are different, matchups matching is different. Like you're coming in and out at different times. You're playing with different guys. Like we probably did even underweight the value of last year being like the continuity that does come and like the comfort and the better play that comes with that of like the second year of like the same roster basically. And now you shift it again and it's going to take a little time. Like everybody does deserve a little grace from that respect for sure. But yeah, we'll see.
Nikhil's also playing awesome. And Nikhil is like Jaden's direct backup, like that might just, I mean, have confidence in the fact that Jaden, you're on like a $130 million contract and Nikhil's making $4.5 million this year. Like that will keep you protected. But I would get some of the psychology of that too. Like Nikhil has the best numbers on the team. He's like, I mean, he messed up that last defensive possession, I guess, but I would still,
and we're not even sure he did.
We're not. Yeah. It's so
we don't actually think he did. I guess he should have read and reacted to somebody else's kind of blemish, blunder and quicker, I guess, to make up for that. Like he should have hid Ant just getting crushed by a screen. I guess they called it out better, but like not a glaring mistake. I don't think.
Yeah, he's pretty much 10 for 10 on good games, you know, or like 7 great games, 3 good games from Nikhil, and that's huge. I think that's a big part of the reason why they're above 500 right now. But it is in ways can in ways be in direct conflict of Jaden, or maybe even just subconsciously feels that way.
This is the weirdest part of this team is like it's a good thing to have depth, but like it's a weird thing just in terms of like closing time and whatnot. Like not having a pecking order can kind of confuse things to some degree. Like obviously the very top end of the pecking order, like Julius and Ant for sure will be out there, and then Julius probably, unless he like, who knows if he plays poorly for 3 or 4 games, like dude, then are they like, well, now should Nas close this game? Nas played well, like that kind of stuff. We saw that with some cat Nas last year. Nas closed a couple. And that, like last night, I think it'd be hard to not watch that game and then be like, well, Dante and Nikhil should close over Jaden and Mike here. They didn't. And Finch was asked, like, oh, why did you go with Mike over Nikhil? And he's like, wow, Mike's closed a lot of wins for us here. And it's like, I understand that logic, but you have already made the decision to go with Nikhil multiple games in closing time this year, and Mike has won games for you in the past. So like it would have been nice to get a little more clarity of like, why last night did you actually choose to go with Mike when Nikhil had been playing so well, because you could have went with the Mike's won a lot of games for us in the past, any of those other games as well, when you did choose to go the Nikhil route.
Jace, you know what I think the answer is? It's that Julius and Ant weren't playing well. That's why I think he went to Mike there. Like that would make sense to me because
they had turned it over already a couple of times.
Exactly. And then Mike turned it over too. So it doesn't make it like the right move. But I think that's where the impulse to go back to Mike went was, all right, well, if Mike's not gonna be playing it, Ant's rolling right now, so we're cool. Julius is playmaking well, so we're cool. We don't need our point guard out there. I think I would guess that was a factor involved there. One last thing, kind of before I wrap this up, we're 10 games in. Said I wanted to do just like kind of a numbers check-in 10 in. I don't think that's like a big enough sample size to say this is what a team is, but it does indicate some trends on the offensive side of the ball right now. And as you mentioned, part of this is definitely being boosted by they've had a pretty weak schedule thus far. But offensively, they are 9th in offensive rating, and defensively, they're 10th. So check top 10 in both.
There you go.
It doesn't. Yeah,
Title town.
It doesn't. I do think though there's elements on both sides of the ball that are statistically standing out. You mentioned the turnovers, and they're 24th in turnover rate, and I wonder how much that's going to improve because this was a really high turnover team a season ago. They're 23rd in turnover rate, and it's crazy when you look at like the turnover list. Like when you're down in the bottom 10, you're surrounded by the bad teams.
Yeah.
Like the Blazers, it's the Bulls, it's the Wizards. And they were there last season, and they're there this season through 10 games, which suggests a strong trend, and that being in many ways the team that they are, and to some extent a heavy ball movement offense, which I think is a good thing. It just does play into turnovers.
You saw that with the Warriors' best teams for years. It would be like, wow, how many stupid turnovers here, and then it'd be like, and 122 points.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
and that's what's happening right now. Like they're 3rd in effective field goal percentage, 9th in overall offense. So they're just kind of getting dragged down a little bit by turning the ball over some, and they're not getting the free throw line as much as they did last season. But they're shooting it better, turning it over more, getting to the free throw line less. And overall, that's had compared to last season when they were 16th offensively. Right now they're 9th. That all kind of makes sense to me, actually. I think this is a better offensive team than it was this season ago. I'm not totally sold that it's a top 10 offense yet. I got to see some more. I think they're going to have to learn some more contingencies when Ant isn't playing well, particularly when Ant isn't playing well. If you stop shooting 50% from 3 on 13 attempts a game, there's some things to do there. But just, offensive side of the ball, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that I think they're like near the top of like the 3-point revolution in basketball right now. Like that's an exploding thing, and it just continues to ascend, and they have joined the party, and they like got in front of a lot of teams in the line. And I think like just the general volume, and I think the looks that they're getting, and like the quality of shooters. Like I know there's some ups and downs. Like you can say Ant's going to shoot worse, and I would say, well, I think Dante will shoot better, Mike will shoot better. Like so, like I think that number is pretty sustainable, and I think as long as that's the case, I would much rather be closer to Boston than any other team. In these types of metrics, I think it is kind of like it's where the NBA game is at right now. It's where the best offense. It's the way the best offense is being played. Like I think Minnesota is set up to have success offensively throughout the course of the year because like that is a very consistent form of offense. Like you think 3-point shooting has volatility. I don't know how much it will, just given the shots that they're getting. Like I said, some people are shooting slowly to start the year, and they're still like right up there for basically everything in those metrics. So I think that is a very stable thing, and probably going to be a good formula for them all year.
I do too. And the numbers on that, a season ago, the Wolves were 20th in 3-point volume and 1st in 3-point percentage. Finch named that in training camp. If you're 1st in 3-point percentage, that's easy. That just means you're not shooting enough of them. So now they are 3rd in 3-point volume thus far this season and 5th in 3-point percentage. So it's really healthy relationship with the 3 thus far. Are they going to stay at 5th in percentage if they stay top 3, top 5 in volume? Probably not, but that's okay. If they're shooting the 3rd, 4th, 5th most threes in the league per game, or per 100 possessions, whatever, and they stay top 10 3-point percentage, that's a win. And to your point, I think there's a lot of paths to making that happen. I think that will happen. Let's do the defensive side of the ball. They are 10th in defense thus far this season, obviously after being first a season ago. It's weird because it feels it does have its stretches of feeling pretty good. Maybe not last year good. Oftentimes that's when Rudy's out there, right? He's just a defensive rating, I don't know, booster.
Yeah.
A difference here statistically is last year they were 5th in generating turnovers, and this year they're 18th. Rebounding wise, they're the same, 10th in defensive rebounding. So a lot of it is that they're just not generating as many turnovers as a season ago, and teams are hitting shots at a little bit better of a clip. I don't think any of that's luck. I think that's the team that has a little bit less defensive juice, but maybe enough to still be top 10. And maybe they figure out some more stuff in the non-Rudy lineup so they can matriculate up to 8th or 7th or something like that before it's all said and done. It does feel like, though, that this team is not going to be a top 3 defense in the league, and that would really surprise me. It's kind of the trade-off of those offensive numbers going up and seeming like they're going to stay up. I think this is going to be a little bit more balanced this year. It's just an adjustment to be like, oh yeah, in 1 in every 3 games they might not be the best defensive team. When last season felt like they played the best defense against their opponent 90% of the time. That in and of itself is a bit of an adjustment.
Yeah, I do think like the mentality's got to be better. I don't think they get up into the ball like at all, and that has nothing to do with like Cat for Julius. Like getting up into the ball is Nikhil, Jaden, like that is where that tone was set so often, and you could do that because Rudy was back there, and you can still do that. Rudy's still back there. Like that has nothing to do with Cat. I still think like when you have those 3 wing defenders and Rudy Gobert, you should be at minimum like a top 5 defense. I just think I think that maybe they've gotten a little high on themselves like this year. Like Anna's talked about that. Like we're expecting that we're just going to come out and win games. Like sure. I don't think they just don't look like as hungry of a team right now. And I'm not saying that won't happen. But to me, like, and maybe there's some like lack of comfort, familiarity can lead to that. Maybe not having the confidence to go with that same vigor defensively. But I just think like mentality wise, they don't look like the same defense right now. And if they find it, I think they absolutely have the personnel to at least be top 5. I think that they've been really disappointing on that end in my mind. The stretches like that have been okay. Like maybe like 3 minutes here where you're like, that was good defense, or 1 possession here or there. Like there's been no jaw-dropping defense from this team thus far. And like I think that has been like a major sticking point of why they just look pretty average right now.
Mm-hmm. Opponents are also only shooting 33% from 3 against the Wolves this year.
And that is usually a number where you look of like, there's going to be regression, like,
so yeah, I mean, I guess, overall though, like you look at those numbers, you can't like be like an F for the defense.
But probably a C. Honestly, I think like that number is a C for this team, like given the talent they have on that end of the court.
And it's because they need to figure out, well, the point of attack defense or just the perimeter defense overall. And it's such a foreign thing to me to watch the Wolves play and have the paint seem so loose.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly in the non-Gobert minutes.
Right.
It is just like that just was not the case a season ago where it looks easy to get through there. And part of it is not having as much size to fill up that painted area. Nas is proving we don't need to do another Nas defense thing, but like, it's just that he does not take up as much physical space as Cat did when Cat was the backup 5. And then Randle, while I've learned a lot of positive things about his offense defensively, he doesn't fill up a lot of defensive space either, which surprised me some. And I'd like to see more from him defensively from a sit down perspective, like you said, from a fly around perspective, or guard the 5s, be big and guard the 5s there and let Nas run around and chase on the perimeter it's there's certainly a better balance that has to be found defensively in the 15 minutes a game that Rudy isn't on the floor. We've talked about that plenty, though. I do give that one a little bit of a pass because that's all right. Julius is in the mix here, and DiVincenzo's often in those groups as well. That is a new personnel sort of thing. But yeah, 10th right now, when they're maybe not even 10th. You know what I'm saying? Given some of that, given that stuff, they seem average overall defensively to me.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see like some opponent adjusted of like, well, here's what they've done against the non-terrible teams. And here's what they've done against the, the actually like basketball teams in the NBA that they've played thus far. But I'm with you.
Those tests are coming. Those tests are
yes. Yeah, we'll find out. And I actually I don't always know, is it helpful to have a soft opening schedule or not? Or do you rather play the bad teams later? I think you'd oftentimes rather play the bad teams later, but I do think it has been beneficial for this team to face these other teams as they kind of look to find their footing and establish some identity. I think that's 100% true.
I hear that. That's well put.
Let's leave this quick. So Rudy's defensive rating is 104 right now. That's just when Rudy's on the court. That's the team's defensive rating.
Yep.
And last year it was 106. So honestly, so the Rudy minutes are not, they're better than they've been. So that I guess does show you a little bit of how bad it's been when he's not on the court.
Yeah, I mean it's 104 when Rudy's on the floor and 114 when Julius Randle's on the floor, and those
they're sharing minutes. Which means that the Julius Nas defensive rating, I think we talked about it last week, but it obviously is only getting worse. They literally are better when Rudy's on the court defensively than they were when Rudy's on the floor defensively last year.
Yeah, it's if you look at this from the rotation players, scratch off Ingles and Minot because they've played no minutes. But Randle has the worst defensive rating. Jaden McDaniels has the second worst. Anthony Edwards has the third worst. That checks out to me. That meets the eye test or the feel of watching this team play right now. But again, Rudy is the rising tide that raises all boats. And I do think his presence alone for 32, 34 minutes a night is going to keep this team top 10 for sure. The question is, where does that leave you? When you include the non-Rudy minutes, and then also and this is getting way too far ahead of ourselves, 10 games in, but what's it going to look like defensively when Rudy's off the floor in the playoffs? Right now, it feels like if you played a playoff game tomorrow and Rudy got in foul trouble, I don't know how the Wolves would win the game. He just seems
scoring 140. Yeah, literally, that's it. Right? Yeah, that's it.
So Ant's got to go Steph, and Julius has to do, which and he has. But it's also just been talking to players in the locker room afterwards and Finch too. I mean, there is a frustration internally that they are not playing defense like they did last year. They all know. Yeah,
I'm saying I'd put that at the feet of Ant and Jaden. I really would. A big part of it. And I know like Julius and Nas, it's a problem because they look more like threes defensively than anything else right now. And Julius not like a high energy, lockdown wing defender three either. But I just don't feel like a tone is being set by your two best wing defenders who are supposedly Jaden is all NBA defense. And as somebody who people talk about like he's all NBA defense. I don't feel like either has lived up even close to that billing.
Finch said in Chicago, he said, Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards, and Rudy Gobert, that is the triangle of our defense. And been missing a couple.
It's more like 1 point right now.
Yeah.
Trying to hold
1.5. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and plenty of time to get there too.
For sure.
That's where they're at.
And there's no reason why that one's not correctable. That's not what's wrong. It's just be you, be better, be more intentional on that end of the court. That's all it takes. That can be done in one game,
And from Ant in particular, we've been seeing that switch go on a lot more. He just kind of needs to be reminded of it. I thought it was, he talked about it in the locker room after the Chicago win of it's ridiculous how we're not playing defense in the first quarter of games. And he goes, a lot of that's on me. And then in the first quarter of the game, the next night against Portland, Ant was into the ball and doing it. There, a lot of this is a choice defensively from Ant. But there is, and that he's got a lot on his plate offensively there too. So others need to kind of bolster him because I just do not think you're going to get locked in defensive ant all the time.
He just talked after the other game, maybe the Portland game, about how he has more energy for defense because he's taking all these jumpers this year. So I don't know if I buy into that.
Yeah. True. Oh yeah, that's what he said. I mean, if we're taking everything Ant says, bye.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I hear you. But if he's going to say it, I mean, I'll hold to it.
All right, let's wrap this thing up. Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks, and on Mondays, Jace and I do a Monday slate of Prize Picks. Jace, what do you have tonight?
Well, it's going to do the one that I know one you're doing, and so I'm not going to touch it. This player.
Thank you.
Because it has to be something 4-man. Oh yeah, there yours are right there.
Right there.
You have DeMarcus Robinson over 3.5 targets.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just say that's your first one.
Okay.
I won't spoil it for listeners. I know there's a lot of intrigue with this. I'll go Devon Achane under 46.5 receiving yards. He's gone over that a lot recently, but that is a pretty big number for running back.
That's a really big number. Wow.
Yeah, and he's gone over that a lot with Tua. But I'm just gonna take the under on it.
Okay. I think it's funny that it's a demon for Matthew Stafford to have one rushing yard. But his over-under is set at 0.5 rushing yards in this game, and it's juiced that he gets a yard. And I think this is like the perfect example of this is all an algorithm. Like these are all set by an algorithm. And Matthew Stafford has -7 rushing yards this season because, they like track some of them as stats. You can't tell me it's an under 50% proposition that Matthew Stafford gets one rushing yard tonight.
I could tell you that.
I don't think so, man.
And
I'm gonna take the juice of it.
I totally get the juice of it. The Rams are favored to win, so that's likely kneel downs. Assuming they do win, that's likely kneel downs at the end of a game. And doesn't really run forward. Here's his last 5 games: 0, -4, -2, 0, -1. So I think it is a less than 50% proposition. I'm all for you taking the demon. It's a fun thing to root for as he sits there and like getting chased. It's like run forward. But the mathematical proposition is that it was less than 50%. Because it's happening again and again and again and again.
If you take the small sample size of the NFL regular season to suggest what that would be 8 games, I don't know. I think it's an over 50% props. I want to look that up on whatever. What the odds are there. So anyways, I'm taking Matthew Stafford, demon juiced to have 1 rushing yard in this game. And I'll have DeMarcus Robinson to have more than 3.5 targets. Obviously Puka and Cooper Kupp are back, but DeMarcus Robinson's like pretty clearly been an important part of the Rams offense recently. So those are the 2 that I have. What's your second one?
I'm going to go Kyren Williams under 85.5 rushing yards. Just a big
80.
number.
Yep.
Miami's not that bad. They've been better since Tua's back. Their defense has been solid.
This one is just totally not gonna work just because Stafford doesn't get a rushing yard. But hey, this is actually a good example. So normally
I don't even think I'm gonna touch this one.
I'll touch it.
I despise it, so I don't think I'm gonna touch it.
It's funny.
Are you gonna flex it because you hate that pick so much?
No.
Okay, cool.
No,
cool,
so
cool.
normally when you would do 4, 4 pieces, then it would be 10x if it hits. But because Stafford's is a demon, then it's 14.5x there. So
which when it jumps that much means that it's a big demon.
I know.
It's not like a 1.1 odds. Yeah, I'm just keep pushing back on the fact of you can't tell me it's less than 50% that he doesn't get it. It is absolutely less than 50%. I'm all for the odds of it, taking the risk of it.
Me and you straight up even odds. Let's bet. What should we do? Like dinner or something?
We probably wouldn't even do it. We could do that, or we could just say at a practice, one person on the day they choose afternoon practice, the one person has to buy the other person Jimmy John's.
Okay, deal.
All right.
So I got Jimmy John's on Stafford getting a rushing card tonight. I love it. I love it. This is Prize Picks.
I can't wait till he has a yard and you're all excited, and then he kneels down twice at the end.
I know that's gonna be killer. Then I'll just come and deliver you Jimmy John's in practice. Prize Picks is a fun thing. I think actually my favorite time. I haven't been doing them really on Sundays, but Thursday night football or Monday night football.
Thing that you don't care about.
Exactly right. It's a little something to do. So we appreciate Prize Picks as a sponsor and allowing us to just kind of shoot the shit about about this stuff. But it's something Jace and I like genuinely enjoy doing, and send each other our little different lineups a couple times a week. If you'd like to try it out, prizepick.com, Prize Picks app. If you haven't done it before, use promo code Dane and they will credit your account with a $50 sign up bonus when you make your first $5 lineup. Anything else, Jace? It's a long one.
I got nothing.
All right. Then coming up, we got Portland at the NBA Cup.
Because it's the cup.
Because it's the cup. I like how they're doing like all the same promotions too. It's like, all right, Vegas, and it's like the commercials are like, we'll go to Ocean's 11 theme again. Like,
yeah, well, I don't even think they redid anything of it. They're like, didn't we do this last show? Let's just use those again.
I was actually wondering that. It's like, did they refilm anything, or is it? I don't know. The same thing. The cup.
Honestly, some people paid so little attention. Some people might think it's the first year of it.
That's actually true. And I want to see the courts too. Isn't the Wolves like the nasty green?
Yeah,
Isn't
it's
that
nasty.
happening?
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Something to look forward to there too. For listeners, I'm heading to Portland for these 2 games. So this week, kind of through the week, it's just going to be Kyle and I will do episodes after those games at Moda Center, and we'll kind of that'll carry us through the week until Friday when we will be at Treasure Island. So that's what's coming up for the rest of this week. Jace, thank you for making it happen on Monday.
Always fun, man.
You guys can read Jace in the Pioneer Press. You can follow him on Twitter at Jace Frederick. Until next episode will be Wednesday. Will come out Wednesday morning after the Wolves' first of their 2 games against the Blazers. Until then, he's Jace. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah.